The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Kevin Jordan or his guests. These gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. And away we grow. Welcome one and all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the show. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast, the home for gardeners and green thumbs alike. My name is Kevin Jordan, also a lover of plants and a wannabe green thumb one day. We're back in studio, going to have a great conversation. We have an amazing guest this week. But before we introduce her, let's say what's up to my buddy on the microphone, Austin Blank. How's it going there, Austin?
Hey, Kevin, I'm doing great, and welcome back to all of our listeners. I'm liking your look today, Kevin. You're looking like the Karate Kid over here.
Yeah, my wife calls me Cobra Kai. Yeah, for sure. I was out in the garden, and it wasn't too hot today, but I was prepared.
You still got the sun?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
I'm sunblocked up, but I have my bandana on, like I'm going to do some karate kicks on some tomatoes. But it's great because with the straw hat, it just really helps keep the sweat from pouring down into my little eyeballs.
What is that? Because it's hot out there?
You know, it was hot, and it's maybe will be hot again, but today, my friend, was a beautiful morning in the garden. It was actually like the coolest day I think we've had in several weeks. I was out in the garden this morning. It was only like 70 degrees and 80 by the time I left.
That's lovely.
So I got so much work done. The school garden is looking immaculate.
Cool.
We're growing these Crenshaw melons up vertically, and I wasn't sure what would happen. I've seen
what's
people
supporting it?
They're on T-posts, metal T-posts,
Okay.
boom, hammered into the ground. And I would like to get cattle panels to use, but I didn't have the resources quite this year for that. So we used this plastic netted fence.
Okay.
And it just pulled it tight. It's cinched up, and actually
It's holding?
It's holding really well. And I have dozens of these, maybe a small basketball, not huge, but you know, like a larger than a softball.
Well, that sounds pretty heavy.
But they're good. They're looking good, and they're all over it. The fence is holding. Their stems are holding, and so I think by next time we talk for next week, I'll have some in studio for us to try. I think it's actually a cantaloupe called Honey Rock. So I can't wait to try those. We're growing cucumbers the same way.
You brought me some cucumbers. Thank you so much.
They are going vertically,
massive.
perfectly as well. Yeah, those were some monsters I brought you. I should have got to them a little sooner, to be fair.
My cucumbers are little baby
Hey,
ones.
you'll get there, buddy. No worries. It's not the size of the cucumber. It's how you grow it. But we have a great episode this week. We have Tamara Berg of KCRA 3, a meteorologist extraordinaire. Let's talk weather, man.
Okay, so why obviously weather's important to all of us.
Crucial.
We look at forecasts, we've got apps on our phone, but for the gardener, Kevin, what it's even more important, right? I mean,
sure.
It affects what you're doing on the day-to-day.
Absolutely, and especially what you choose to grow, how you grow it, and maybe how you react throughout the season. So recently, we've had a pretty solid heat wave, which Tamara will get into and kind of enlighten us on. But that affects what we do and how we cultivate. We had Justin on here a few weeks back, a home farmer. He turned his backyard into a farm. And that heat wave rolled in, and he had over 400 different tomato plants. So for him, it was a big investment. And he's cultivating to eat himself, to sell, and all that. So it's important that he doesn't have them all get destroyed. So he went out, got a shade cloth, popped it up right before that heat wave came in. That's a great example of how we have to react to a certain degree. Our watering may change, but in the cool season, it changes quite a bit as well. So when it comes to maybe spraying your dormant sprays, you want to do it, well before, harsh rain, or if you are dealing with plants that are sensitive to frost and freezes, you're always keeping your eye out for when those frost dates are, when those hard freezes come, because that's going to maybe give you an indication of what you need to do for some of those plants that are sensitive. If you have tropicals, if you're using, frost fabric at all. These are great ways that we can glean and utilize their resources and knowledge so that way we can continue to be successful in our own home gardens.
Right. A lot to consider there. And a good gardener is going to stay up to date with the weather.
For sure.
And also be aware of our climates and everything. So let's go ahead and jump into our interview with Tamara Berg. We met up with her at the Green Acres in Elk Grove to talk everything weather and climate. Here we go.
So Tamara, for those of us who maybe aren't familiar with you, can you give us a little insight into your background, your career, and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tamara Berg. I work at KCRA, KQCA. You might recognize my voice. I talk 5 hours a day straight.
Wow.
On both of those stations. My day starts out, I get to the office at 2:30 a.m. I don't think a lot of people know that. So 2:30 in the morning, I am in the office. And right when I get in, I hit the ground running. There is no slowing. It's just full momentum at that point. I'm looking at forecast data, gathering the observations from the morning, looking at things from the night before, and assembling a forecast. So I never, ever want to be stale. So everything is fresh and new, the data I look at in the morning, so I can give you the best forecast starting at 4 a.m. So from 4 a.m. until 9 a.m., I'm on TV straight. And weather and traffic are every 10 minutes, if you didn't know that. So it's even hard to get a potty break sometimes. But we make it happen, and I bring a lot of snacks, a lot of handhelds that I have under the weather desk just to keep my belly
Energy up,
full and the energy up during the morning. And coffee. Coffee is key as well. So I've been a meteorologist for, now it's going on 23 years. So
That's pretty impressive.
And 12 of those years have been in Sacramento. I fell in love in Sacramento, met my husband, we have a family, and I absolutely love Northern California.
That is kind of leads me to our next question is, what makes our region, I mean, we are people, it's a garden-centric kind of world we're living in right now, especially in our region, but what makes our area so wonderful for gardeners and growers?
I think it's the microclimates. You have to consider that even just the littlest jaunt in elevation here changes. The soil changes. The sun angle changes. So many things change. So you can really grow any crop you want in this area. And for the gardener that's in the valley, that are loving on their tomatoes, especially in the summertime, to the gardener who is trying to make wine up in the foothills. There's so much diversity with this area. So I think it's really cool that you can really kind of dream it and grow it here.
Dream it and grow it. I love that. We're in a bit of a heat wave right now. It's kind of normal for what, I grew up here, so it's always been just raging hot off and on.
Right.
But these last few weeks have been brutal.
They have been.
What really sustains a heat wave? What allows it to kind of continue on? Because eventually it'll end.
Right.
Why are we dealing with one right now?
Yeah, so what's happening now, we have this big area of high pressure. So when I go to the classrooms and talk to kids about weather, I talk about this area of high pressure. And high pressure typically means happy weather, typically, because it gives us stable weather. It's an area of sinking air, and it keeps things stable. It keeps storms out of here. We basically don't see clouds. And in the summer, you can get very hot stretches underneath this heat. Area of low pressure, I typically say it's lousy. That low pressure is an area of rising air, which helps to form the clouds and the storminess, and typically can bring rain. The high pressure is over us right now, and it's acting like a dome. So the way that I try to describe it to people is, it is an area of, let's say you have a pot of boiling water on your stove. That water is just, heating up, and it's sitting in one spot, and it's rising and evaporating. But that area of hot water, it's just not going anywhere. So it's like we took a cap and put a lid on it, and that's the heat dome. That's what's happening. So that convection cycle just kind of continues. Correct. And feeds itself.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. We need something to move that high pressure.
Yes, we do.
And all that hot water or hot air mass to break the cycle of the heat wave.
I cannot wait.
Yes.
Yeah. Will it end?
It should.
Okay.
Yes. Well, the interesting thing is, yesterday was actually, the temperature was 98 degrees was the high.
It wasn't too bad.
We officially broke the heat wave, which was going on to day 9.
Of triple digits.
Yes. We had 9 days straight of triple digits.
Felt like 90.
We did not hit the 10th day.
That's good.
Yes.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. And for perspective, the longest stretch we've ever had of heat, so days above 100 in Sacramento, is 11 consecutive days. We did that back in July of 2006. So the good thing is we didn't break a heat wave stretch, but we still have more of July to get through.
Oh, yeah.
So anything can happen.
The Delta breeze. How delightful is it, and will it ever return? And what actually is that for people who are outside of our
Sure.
region who don't know?
Yeah, so the Delta breeze is just it's this magical phrase. I love using it on TV, especially when we get these hot stretches of weather.
It makes me feel good when I hear it.
It does. So this morning we actually had a little taste of the Delta breeze. It wasn't robust, so it wasn't the type of breeze where, a morning in Sacramento, you open up the window and it can cool the whole entire
I love
house.
that.
But it was one of those that if you walk your dog every morning, if you go water your plants every morning, you felt the difference this morning, that those temperatures were down a little bit. We were talking more like low 60s versus mid to upper 60s.
Yeah, it does feel different. You open that door, and instead of a wave of heat just
Yes.
kind of hitting you early morning, you're like, oh, it never even cooled off.
Yes. So I like to refer the Delta breeze. The perfect setup has to be in place for us to get a Delta breeze. And what that setup is, you want a good solid marine layer at the coast. So we're talking the marine layer, a depth of over 1,000 feet. And the marine layer is, what Mark Twain always talked about. When folks go to the coast, San Francisco, in the summer, it's the coldest summer they ever spent was in San Francisco. It's because of the marine layer.
Yeah.
But for us here in Sacramento in the Central Valley, we look at that marine layer, we say, please, we want it. And we want a southwest or onshore flow on top of a good marine layer. That transports the Delta breeze to the Central Valley.
Oh, please
and
come.
cools us off.
Yeah, certainly.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the difference, because I know some people maybe conflate these two between weather and climate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically, and I'm literally going back to Mississippi State, Meteorology 101. So weather is the status of what's happening right now on the daily, every minute, every hour. Weather is happening right now. What climate is, it's the long range, the compilation of
30
weather
years or whatever.
over a period of time. And it's being able to go back and say, on this date, when you look at a weather almanac, that's a good range of what climate is it's sourcing data back to, on this day back in 2021, it was the hottest day recorded, or the temperature was this, or we had this much precipitation, things like that.
So Tamara, one of the things we look forward to, especially on days like this when it's so warm, are the moments we have fog.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard about Tule fog. I think
Right.
I used to call it zombie fog when I was a kid. We used to love
Yes.
it when it rolled in at night. We think it was so cool. What is it? How is it occurring? And can we hope that it'll ever return?
Yeah, so I will never forget when I moved here 12 years ago I moved in December 12 years ago. There was Tule fog on my drive along I-5. I was moving from Salinas up through the Sacramento Valley and into downtown Sacramento. And we had fogged the whole drive with, all the stuff that we were hauling with us. Tule fog is most evident in usually December, January, and February. You need the colder temperatures. And it's usually during the winter season. Typically that fog loves to set up after a really good rain. So you want to have a ground that's soaked, and then you want to have a source of kind of warmer air mass moving in to generate that fog. So think of Tule fog as just a very thick stratus cloud that's on the ground and doesn't move. That's Tule fog. And that's what makes it visibility so bad. You can't see getting through it. But Tule fog is great, especially in the farming community, because a lot of times it will come to an area and it doesn't move for hours, sometimes days. I know back in the day, sometimes Tule fog would stick around for 2 to 3 days at a time. But you're right, it is something we have not really seen a lot of in the last few years. And I think a lot of that is due to, climate change. The atmosphere is warming, and we're not seeing as much of that fog get a chance to set up, or things dry out quickly and the moisture's not staying in the ground long enough during those times.
What is an atmospheric river?
Yeah.
And when can I hope to see one again?
Well, likely not until the winter season. That's when those really start to ramp up and start to, organize and come into the West Coast. But an atmospheric river, the best way to describe it, it's just a river of water in the upper level of the atmosphere. And when that river sets up perfectly right along the coast and moves into a certain area, it just delivers usually days and days worth of rainfall for the region. One of the most notable things about an atmospheric river is that it can typically deliver most of our precipitation in the winter season, if we get enough of them, if we get enough strong ones. And they all have varying strengths as well. Sometimes we get an atmospheric river in the area, and most of the energy goes to our north. So Redding and points north get the most rainfall. Sometimes it comes right into the central coast and everything goes south towards, Monterey and Santa Barbara. And sometimes it comes right into Sacramento. And when we get those, that's where we get a lot of the winter precipitation.
When it just dumps.
Measure up, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the garden at the school got a little bit moist during the last few atmospheric rivers, where I actually would see it kind of, even on a flat landscape, it would still even kind of level up.
Yeah, they're good, and they could be bad too. That the other part is the story is how it can deliver different qualities of snow in the mountains, which can be dangerous because let's say, especially we saw a lot of this past winter, we had avalanches left and right. And that's all due to the quality of the snow. So when you get these different slabs of snow that are different qualities, sometimes the snow gives, and we saw a lot of that happening this past winter.
Scary.
Yeah.
You say you have a 3-year-old at home, not to put you on blast.
Sure.
But have you found yourself getting out in the garden with your boy, and what do you feel about that?
Yes. So personally, we are slowly starting a garden in our own backyard. However, my neighbors all have food that they grow.
And those are good neighbors.
My neighbor, Doug, he's wonderful. He's retired, and so he puts all his energy into his garden, and he's always asking every week, do you and your son Alex want to come over and pick what I've got popping up? And even just a few weeks ago, he had carrots. He said, these are ready to pick. And for my son loves carrots. And the fact that he could go over to the planter box where Doug had them and just pull them up out of the dirt was so exciting. He got really excited. And all I had to hear on the walk home from neighbor Doug's house was, Mama, I want to plant carrots. And then he also said, I want to plant strawberries and watermelon. So it got his brain going to what he could envision and imagine in our own backyard. So we are going to make that happen. It's going to be a slow process, but we're going to make it happen.
Hey, I think I know some people who can help.
Yes.
We're happy to help here at the podcast. That's rad. That is so cool. It's really fun to see that spark kind of take place, and especially in such a young person in their mind, and hopefully set up like a lifelong love of not just gardening and growing, but maybe eating healthy.
Yes.
I love at the school we try to introduce our students to eating, and one of the best days I ever had at school, we had a 6th grader group come in, and we were showing them carrots that were ready to harvest. Like, pull them up, and I was telling them, we'll dust them off, we'll take them in, we'll wash them, and before we could even get them in, this student just kind of knocks it on his knee and just starts eating it dirty.
Yes.
And then all the teachers are looking at him, no. And I'm just like, let him go. Yeah. And he's eating it. I'm like, did you have fun today? And he was like chomping on a carrot. He's all, best day of my life.
Yes. We actually, back in when cherries were in season, we went to Lodi to a farm out there and picked our own cherries. Something I'd never done before. My son, what cracked me up the most was he would grab from the tree and he would eat one, grab one, put it in our bag, eat one, grab it, and I was like, oh man, I'm like, we need to pay for those. You gotta you pay by the scale, but the farmer even said that's just kids. That's what they do. And, by the time we left, he was red-handed, red-faced because of all the cherries.
He was making sure they were ripe. He's like, Mom, these ones are good.
Yes.
I love that. That's the best.
It was great, too, to get home and eat those because he would request for a snack. Like, Mama, I want the cherries we picked.
Yeah.
Okay, here they are.
What are some of the foods that you, like if you had a big lush garden, what are some of your favorite fruits and veggies to incorporate into a healthy day of eating?
I am obsessed with cauliflower. I just love that there's so many ways to season it and spice it up and to cook it. One of my favorite ways is in my air fryer. Little extra virgin olive oil, salt, pepper, maybe a little thyme, rosemary, and just pop it in, and it's ready to eat.
What temperature and how long? Because I tried it one time. I was like, I'm going to do the cauliflower buffalo wings. Yes. And I think I did it too hot, too long, because I came back and it was unrecognizable.
Was it a charcoal color?
Charcoal is being generous. It was almost as near ash.
I'll be honest with you, I've never really tried cauliflower with like a sauce per se, like you said. I always just go pretty light on the extra virgin olive oil, and then just kind of let it do its thing, and I eye it. So I go like 5 to 8 minutes typically. Okay. Yeah.
Smart. Okay. Yeah. I think I have to learn a little bit. But it seems like cauliflower is like this year's or this time's. It's like Brussels sprout, where it's getting
Yes.
like a resurgence or a renaissance.
Right.
People are really like, oh, I got cauliflower crust and different
Yes.
ways of utilizing it.
Right. And I think really the keto diet kind of takes the claim for bringing cauliflower to a whole new form too. Like I love cauliflower crust. If that's an alternative, if I go to a restaurant that makes pizza,
Yeah.
I'm going to order that. Back in the day, especially like when I was growing up, and in Ohio, vegetables came out of a can. Hate to say it, but they did. But now that I'm learning, to cook with the fresh produce of our area here, the sky's the limit as to what you can put vegetables in for our children or show them how to work with too.
Certainly. And I would suggest, since you're starting out your garden at home,
Yeah.
cauliflower, it grows amazing here.
That's good to know.
We grow them wild in our, we kind of start them in our cool season and then usually harvest them in spring.
Okay.
And they're massive.
Okay.
There's purple, there's orange, you can get the traditional white.
Okay.
And I'll show you pictures. They're monsters.
That's
and they're so good when they're fresh.
awesome.
I've noticed that when you take it right from the garden and goes right into the kitchen, it is just snappier, it's tender. I love the store-bought stuff too, but it's just something about it, about bringing something fresh in from the garden and eating it right away.
Agreed, yeah. And I love Sacramento, I live close enough to Midtown, and they have the Midtown Farmers Market every Saturday. And that is just such an event. And I've been going to it for 12 years that I've lived here. It has expanded. I think it's one of the #1 top-rated farmers markets now in the country.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I gotta give it
it's huge.
second shot.
If you've never been, give it a whirl. Give it a field trip to downtown Sacramento and enjoy. That's the other thing too. I take my son and you have access to the farmers there. So you get to actually go up and say, what are you liking right now? And they say, well, the peaches or the apricots are great. Or here, try my tomato. And they'll give you samples too. So I love that this area cultivates growth and warmth in what folks grow and the knowledge to explain it to people too.
So let's plug that Midtown Farmers Market. When does it occur? What day and what time?
So it's Saturdays in Midtown Sacramento. It's on 20th and K Streets. That'll get you there. And that farmers market is so large now that it expands down several streets that are blocked off for you to enjoy. It's every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
For people who are just day-to-day gardeners and growers, what can they glean? Should they be listening to you on the day-to-day for their information, and how can they utilize that for just better gardening practices and choices?
Yeah, weather, obviously, if you're a gardener, and it doesn't matter what your skill level is, you need the weather forecast to help you assess when should I garden. On these hot days, you're best to do it before 10 a.m. That's when you're going to keep most of the moisture in the ground. It's not going to evaporate. You also want to know, how long is the heat going to be around? And then, of course, in the wintertime, when we get these freezes or frost, do I need to cover my sensitive plants? We do a really good job. I know my weather team does a great job of talking about, protect all of the peas, plants, pets, pipes, whenever we go into a freeze situation. And we can pretty much predict, down to the hours of when that freeze is going to happen. So stay with KCRA. We'll get you through any sort of tough weather situation. But also, if you're farming and maybe you've got a large crop that you need to know how much rain your fields are going to get or lack thereof, are your fields. If you're farming in Turlock versus, let's say, Yuba City, might be a different situation. Yuba City and those rice fields could get, 6 inches of rain. And in Turlock, you're like, I got half an inch. We access so many things on our phones these days, including the apps. Granted, once in a while, I'll look at my app and just to give myself an idea. So I like to tell folks, especially when it comes to weather, you can get an idea of what may potentially happen on that day. And I say an idea because these apps are not correct. If you've ever gone to, let's say, Apple, for example, and looked at a weather app and gone down the rabbit hole like I've done before, where you scroll to the bottom and you go through all the disclaimers, did you know that they actually say we're not responsible for inaccurate data? These are sourced from XYZ websites. So what you're getting is not what you can guarantee is going to happen. And a prime example of this, and this just happened, I wrote a big web article on it on KCRA.com. We had a temperature that was on the app, and it was saying that, someday in July was going to be 119 degrees. And this was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, everyone flipped out.
People went nuts. It was all over social. Everybody was talking about, I'm sure, the water cooler at work. And what I had to say was, that's when I went down that rabbit hole and I saw all these disclaimers and thought, what people need to know is that a forecast is accurate 2 to 3 days leading up to an actual weather event. Now, that data was coming out 9 days out of ahead of what it was trying to say, speculating. So I'll say speculation that it was going to be 119 on a certain day. We never got to 119 on that day. We actually, I believe the temperature was like 108. So that just gives you an idea. And also the apps change by the minute and by the hour. I mean, I've been in a place before where it's raining and I look at my app and it says it's sunny. And then a minute later it changes and said, oh, now it's raining. So that just gives you an idea. They're not trustworthy. You want to trust your local meteorologist, your trusted source for weather, because we also are looking at so much data and we are getting the data from reliable sources. And we're also using our own source of knowing the geology and the climatology of our area to put our forecast together.
So Tamara, climate change, big deal, big, huge buzzword these days. We're hearing a lot about it. Have you been looking at any evidence recently that kind of highlights any concepts or ideas in climate change for our own given region here in California?
Well, considering that it's July, and for Northern California, specifically downtown Sacramento, it's already been showing signs that it's going to be one of the hottest Julys on record. And we have proof of that by just going through the data. And I know we're not even halfway through the month, but at this point, here's an example. The average temperature for July so far is 106.3 degrees. And that's taking a culmination of just how hot it's been so far in these past 10 days, taking them together and producing an average. And the average is 106. Now, typically, to give you perspective, we typically average for July 87.9 degrees. That's typical
lovely.
average. So you can do the math yourself and how much above average we're already sourcing for July and how much hotter it is. And knowing that we're going into more heat, even looking at today and beyond, there's going to be more triple-digit days ahead. So I do say, if I had to put money on it right now, July in Sacramento could be one of the hottest ones on record.
If any of our listeners want to get into what you're doing or actually follow you,
sure.
How can they watch more Tamara?
Sure. So on social media, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is pretty simple. It's Sunny, SUNNY, T-Berg, T-B-E-R-G. And then I'm also on our station KCRA Facebook page. It's KCRA Tamara Berg. And then you can also find me on X. That's KCRA T-Berg. And then you can also, if you want to drop me an email, that's tberg, T-B-E-R-G, @Hearst, like the castle, HEARST.com.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get you back on. We'd love to come out. Maybe we'll come out and help you with your garden.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
I would love that.
That'd be awesome. Tamara Berg, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And thank you for the tomatoes. I cannot wait to have
enjoy
really
those.
Yummy salad because it's going to be hot today.
All right, we are back from our interview with Tamara. Big thank you to Tamara. It was such a blast getting to meet with you and talk everything weather. It was great nerding out. Kevin, what did you think?
I was so impressed by Tamara. She had just an incredible amount of knowledge. Our interview went on and on. I couldn't stop asking questions. I felt like I was back in school, like with a professor that you really like. You're like, oh my God, I just hang on to every single word.
I finally learned about the Delta breeze.
The Delta breeze.
Like what even is that?
Yeah, that cool, moist sea breeze that we get hopefully every now and then when the conditions are just right. It's pretty cool. Just the science of it, the uneven heating of the surface where the land kind of warms up a little faster than the ocean. And then you get that rising air, hopefully drawing in that cool, moist air to replace it, and hopefully pushing in towards us. It's really fascinating. I was really impressed by her knowledge. And for us gardeners, it's not only just interesting to hear about the weather and learn about it, but just having your finger on it, for that day-to-day updates from a trusted person like Tamara Berg. For us, I'm definitely earned my trust. But from a gardener's perspective, whether you're throwing up shade cloth to avoid, scorched tomatoes and plants in the summer heat when things get over 105, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way to wintertime when we're looking at reports of frost and freeze and how do we protect our plants that are sensitive. These things are important to us gardeners and growers, and so like I said, having this information and being able to access it, I think is crucial.
A trusted source.
A trusted source. We discussed how some of the apps that we get on our phone aren't quite accurate. And so it's nice, I think, for wherever you live to find someone like Tamara that you can truly trust, someone who is actually a trained meteorologist. That's important. So for us gardeners, it is crucial. The weather, we live and die by it.
It matters because our plants are out there in that stuff.
Yes, you know it. And we can do things to mitigate that. And so it's nice to know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen with some accuracy. So thank you so much to Tamara Berg. Thank you, Austin, for another great edit. I had a blast in that interview, and I appreciate you setting up all the audio as always. And I hope our listeners can go check out Tamara Berg at KCRA 3 Meteorology, or she's the meteorologist there, and check her out, man. She's fantastic. And so until next week, garden friends, I want to thank you all for being here. My name's Kevin, the cumulonimbus kid, Jordan, wishing you all an amazing week out in your garden. Don't worry about the weather too much because we have a beautiful summer to enjoy, no matter how hot or cool it's going to be. So get out there, get in that garden, make sure your plants are watered and well cared for, harvest as needed, and enjoy every moment of it. Until next week, garden friends, take care of yourselves, have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Happy gardening to you all, and please never stop growing.